This project is growing food, medicine, and plant propagation materials in a way that is actually helping to restore the landscape, all while empowering people to reconnect to the land. It's called an ecosystem restoration camp. In this video, you're about to learn how they're making it happen by using a specialized agroforestry practice known as forest farming.
Welcome to the Skykomish Biocultural Restoration Field Station. We're on a strip of riparian forest on land of the Tulalip tribes of Washington. Grateful for their hosting, and we're learning to tend a forest. Essentially what happens here is I invite anyone who's interested in restoration or wildcrafting or forest management to come down and camp by the river on this land and do work in the forest. In the river right behind me, there are threatened and endangered species. So Chinook salmon was once a staple food for everyone that's ever lived here, for the tribes, the settlers after, and now one of the major causes of decline of salmon is loss of habitat. The river used to have big old forests, and the river knocked down trees, and the trees floated around in the river, and it created scour holes and pools, and that's where the fish would rest in the pools, and the baby fish can find food and places to hide along the messy bank. The forest and the river interacting is what makes the habitat strong. The process of salmon recovery is going to be a long, long road, but complex forests along rivers is really the beginning of that work. Just the other week, I sat down with my computer mapping and I calculated how much land is out there. If you go all across lowland Puget Sound, you look at all the wetlands, all the forests around the wetlands, all the streams, all the forests around the streams, you add it all up just in the lowlands, it's just shy of 1 million acres around Puget Sound. It's a huge land base, and it is incredibly important to the tribes that live here, and it's still this beautiful landscape. And a lot of it's in pretty bad shape in terms of historical clearing and sort of overuse and then neglect afterwards, and an invasion by introduced species. A lot of these places, they've been degraded in the past and now they're neglected. There's no one to take care of them. And so my interest is just to remove the barriers. There's people that want to interact with the land and they want to have a place they can tend. Creating a way of sharing this landscape so that more people can be active benefits everyone. I collaborate with both the tribal natural resources staff as well as the conservation district and come up with strategies for doing restoration. So we have an area that was mostly blackberry and knotweed, which are introduced species that do really well down here, but we slashed them down last year and then we're planting in alder. We're overplanting the alder. The blackberry knotweed isn't going to get enough light to maintain itself. At some point in the future, we can take the trees out, maybe 2/3, 3/4. We can harvest them for fuel. We could harvest them for mushroom logs, and we'll have a canopy of alder. We'll have suppressed some of the plants we don't want, and at that point, we can start filling in the gaps with other natives that are used to growing under a shade.
Not only is this project meeting important restoration goals, they are finding creative ways to also grow food, medicine, and propagation materials that can be used to expand the restoration work to other sites across the region.
One of our goals on this site is to produce a lot of seeds and cuttings and divisions of native plants so we can use them in other sites. We call it our mother garden. As we're kind of experimenting out here, we're always trying to figure out how can we tuck more value into the same system. So in this case, it's a sunny edge. We want to grow hazelnut, and we want to grow the whips, and we want to produce baby hazelnuts. Hazelnut grows from a clump. Those young straight whips are really flexible. It's a great basket material. And there's an opportunity to manage a clump of hazel for production in a really different way than if you were just letting the tree get old. We're bending over branches, we're burying them in the ground. It's a process called layering. By keeping it attached to the parent plant and burying a branch underground, then that branch will form roots, and then we can harvest that plant and move it somewhere else, or we can just layer another branch and expand the hazel patch. So we're basically taking a couple old hazelnuts and shifting it to being able to produce lots of whips, either for basketry or for production of seedlings. So we decided to mix in some lupin. It's a native nitrogen-fixing forb. It's an herb, and it produces a lot of seed. The seed is useful if we're doing a restoration on another site. We might start with lupin because it will fix nitrogen and improve the soil. The hazelnut will grow above the lupin will suppress the grass. Lupin's going to fix nitrogen to feed the hazel, and then as we harvest the hazel, it'll create spaces for the lupin to rebound and maybe produce some seed. By assembling a forest that has all the pieces present, it's just less work. It takes care of itself. We want to be able to just show up once a year or twice a year, do a light touch and be able to get something out of it. It might not be your principal income, but it could have household value. For example, every spring I go into chunks of forest I work in and I harvest nettles and I throw them in the freezer, and I have a nutritious green for my family all year round. So it doesn't have to necessarily be thought of as a commodity. A lot of farms have woodlots, they have wetlands, there's a forested buffer, a section next to a stream that's regulated, and there's a common assumption that, you can't touch that. And I think that a lot of the regulations, what they're trying to accomplish is a protection and restoration of ecological function. And you can do that with humans involved. By adding new species, we're expanding the bloom time, we're supporting pollinators, we're increasing the number of different products that we get out of the forest. And it's not like the other forest animals are, unhappy with our management. In fact, we're probably increasing the biodiversity of the life of the forest by doing this manipulation. It benefits a large rural landowner, it benefits people that come and learn the skills, and ultimately it's just a richer landscape for everyone to share. Go make relationships with the river, go make relationships with the forest, and it's just so rewarding.